Right. Hello everyone. Welcome. There's lots of chatting happening. All right, thank you for joining us today for Friday Forum and Conversation Cafe. We are so excited to bring you a wonderful presentation in celebration of Women's History Month. Special thanks this week to the Bruce D. Nesbitt African American Cultural Center, the Women's Resources Center, the LGBT Resource Center, the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the Gender and Women's Studies Department for their generous support of this event. As part of Women's History Month, we wouldn't be able to host this event without your contributions. Afterwards, please remember to fill out an evaluation form. It really helps us better our programs going forward. And for our friends here in Latzer Hall in person, feel free to stick around afterwards for Casey Umland, Interim Director of the Women's Resource Center, to facilitate a conversation with Sesali until 1. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Karen Flynn, a professor in gender and women's studies, as well as a dear friend to Sesali here at the university, who will just give a brief introduction.
No, you know, I just arrived from Canada yesterday, and those silly people had me take a COVID test at 6 o'clock in the morning, despite somebody else telling me that I didn't need one, because I didn't need one to go. You ready? What you doing? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. May I have your attention, please? I guess you already know me because someone introduced me when I wasn't here, so I'm not going to introduce myself again. But it is my, delightful pleasure to introduce a former student of mine, Sesali Bowen. So I taught Sesali, we can't remember the date, but it has to be somewhere between, 2009, okay, 2009. So, and she was in my Black Women in the Diaspora course. And at that moment, I knew that Sesali was fired. I'm not gonna go into the intricacies of this particular story, but just say that she, the TA we had some issues. We'll just leave it at that because I think I'm being recorded. And Sesali put her in her place, rightly so. But at that moment, I think what I realized as a junior faculty at the time, just how assumptions are made about Black girls and Black women. That was very clear to me. That particular TA reported me to the union. And but Sesali is fabulous. I'm so thrilled to see where she's been, where she's at, and where she's going. And so I'm going to read from this professional autobiography. So, Sesali is a multifaceted writer, media personality, and cultural commentator with a knack for plus-size style. She's a former senior entertainment editor at NYLON magazine, one of the architects of Refinery 29's Unbothered, and the author of the memoir manifesto Fat Black Girl, From A Trap Feminist, which came out last year, Amistad Press. Sesali is also the creative producer and co-host of Purse First, the podcast about female and queer rap. Her work has appeared in Cosmopolitan, the New York Times, and InStyle. Sesali is currently freelance copywriting for companies like Netflix. She was born and raised on the Southside of Chicago and was forced to drop out of University of Illinois before transferring to DePaul University, where she received her bachelor's in gender studies. She received her master's in women's and gender studies from Georgia State University. She loves press-on nails and direct deposits. And Sesali currently lives in New Jersey. So if you don't, you gotta follow Sesali on IG because she is hilarious. Okay, so all of y'all who's on Instagram, follow her on Instagram because she's hilarious. So please join me in welcoming the amazing Sesali Bowen.
Oh, might drop a thug tear. Let me make sure my mics are on. Can you all hear me? Check, 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 testing, testing. Can you all hear me? Okay, perfect. And then how's my sound? Amazing. Hey, y'all. Oh my God. This is like, so first of all, let me just say, raise your hand if you are a current student here at U of I. I just want to say you're spoiled. You don't know the struggle. I'm riding down Green Street, all these new buildings. We didn't have any, this very room that we're in now, we actually had like the luncheon for the Black graduation for what was supposed to be my class, because I ain't graduate from here. But like we had like the luncheon for the Black graduation in this very room. And even this room is looking completely different than it was. So yeah, y'all are not struggling like I was struggling, but I'm excited to be here, and I am actually here to talk to y'all today about scamming. Dead ass. So first and foremost, I want to just let folks know up front, just the type of person I am, there's probably going to be some profanity in this presentation. There's going to be a lot of storytelling. I'll be reading a little bit from my book, but it'll be a lot of me just talking to you all. And so if folks, I know that we're in Lent right now, if there are any, folks of God here who might be, opposed to some swear words at this point in time, this is not the presentation for you. I just wanted to let y'all know that right now. All right. Now, the reason I want to talk to y'all about scamming is because honestly, like, it's kind of a scam that I'm up here a little bit right now. Like, it's a little bit of a scam. Like, as Dr. Flynn mentioned, usually the people who get kicked out the schools are not the people who are asked to come back to talk at the school, right? Like, technically I owe the University of Illinois $1,700 on a Stafford loan that I took out in like 2006. I am being paid more than that right now to be here, standing here talking to y'all. Period. And I'm still not gonna pay it back. So when I say it's a scam, I mean that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But I think that like a lot of you all would agree with me that like scamming is having a moment right now, a pop culture moment, right? So has anybody watched Inventing Anna on Netflix? Did you all watch The Tender Swindler? Did you all watch Bad Vegan? Okay. So, like scamming is cute right now when people are very obsessed with it in like this very kind of voyeuristic way. And I thought that was a great entry point for today, because a lot of the work that I do, and especially a lot of the writing that I do in this book, is around looking at some of the things that pop culture loves to like gobble up is like super exciting and cute and important, and like working backwards to actually talk about like, wait, what is that? What does that mean? What communities are really like leaning into that? How, why, etc. And then, you know, eventually it'll come back to a little bit of bad bitchery. We'll get there, I promise. So the first scam that I want to talk to you all about is the one in which I was arrested. This was in 2007. I was actually a student here at the university, and I had gone back to Chicago. It was after my first terrible year at the University of Illinois. I think when I finished my freshman year, I think I had like a 1.6 GPA. And it's because I thought that I was going to be a doctor, and I was in the molecular and cellular biology program. Are there any MCB majors in here? I didn't think so, because y'all don't, oh, it's one. How do you have the time to be here right now eating lunch and listening to someone else speak? Because there is no time. There is no time when you're taking those MCB classes. There is no time when you're taking those chemistry classes. I don't think that is a sustainable path forward. It was certainly not a sustainable path forward for me. So I had this terrible GPA. I was like so excited to come down to college. Thought I was such a bad bitch. Like, oh, I go to U of I, you know. And I'm like, ooh, and that just did not go the way I thought it would. So I go back to Chicago for the summer. I'm like, damn, this is just nothing about this worked out the way it was supposed to. Because the other thing that I discovered, in addition to the fact that I was not good at sciences, was that like it was also one of those moments where I really was experiencing wealth differently when I got to a school like this. So I'm from Chicago, I'm from the Southside of Chicago, and you know, like the most kind of class diversity that I experienced was like working class, middle class. I got a little bit of experience around like people who had a little bit more money, because one of my jobs in high school was at Nordstrom. That place is gonna come back, just hold on a second. But I worked, so, you know, I just didn't have that. And then I got here, and child, it was people riding to their classes in Lamborghinis up Green Street. I said, I wonder if they got the same student loans that I got, because I can't get no Lamborghini with the funding that with the way my package was looking, right? So one of the other kind of experiences that I picked up during that fateful freshman year was actually shoplifting, because like a lot of college students, I was broke. So like it started as like, all right, look, we about to go to Target. I need some body wash, I need some lotion. You know, I need like some other stuff around the house, but what I have is $18. All of it's not getting paid for. All right, let's figure it out. But then it grew into something else, because then I realized I was good at it. And I want to read a passage that I actually wrote about this time in my life, and specifically like what I think was working in my favor. I could go into a store with friends who were actually spending money, walk out with a ton of shit I'd stolen, and they wouldn't have a clue until we were in the car headed home. Sometimes I buy a couple items and then triple the amount of stuff in my bag. I made sure that I interacted with the staff. In department stores, I would chat up the sales associates, sometimes with merchandise in my hand where they could see it. Even if the loss prevention folks had pinged me as suspicious when I walked in, I imagined them relaxing and moving on to someone else after seeing me cozied up with their sales associate Barb in the plus size section. I don't know if her name was Barb, it's just the energy. Most important, I followed my instincts. If I ever had an inkling that someone was on to me, I was comfortable putting every item back on the shelf and abandoning the mission. But my biggest advantage was that I knew how to look like a shopper. This is partly because I worked in retail since I was a teenager, but it's also because I had certain privileges that other Black girls did not. So what happened was that like, and this is where we can start talking about some low-level scamming, some everyday scamming that a lot of us do every single day. How many of y'all have heard of code switching? little bit higher, hands a little bit higher. Okay, a majority of folks here have heard of code switching. How many of y'all code switch sometimes? Every Black person in here better raise their hand because I know that you're doing it. That is a little bit of a scam if you think about it, right? Like, girl, you know you don't talk like that. Why did you answer the phone in that specific tone? It's because you wanted to get a certain response from whoever you were engaging in that moment. You wanted to exude a certain, you wanted them to have certain expectations about the type of person you were. You wanted them to maybe approve you for something or to sell you something. You wanted to be maybe accepted into a space that these folks maybe would not have normally allowed you access to be in, right? Isn't that what Anna Delvey did to get to get a $40 million loan for a building on Park Avenue? Okay, just make sure we're all on the same page. All right, so I think that for me, what I dove deep into when I got to U of I was not just, oh, I learned how to take things out of a store. I started to understand that there were a lot of different perspectives on me as like a fat Black girl from Chicago. I understood that there were a lot of different like opinions and ways of viewing me and ways of viewing my body that may or may not have aligned with what I thought of myself, but I also knew that it would be strategic for me at certain moments to play either towards or against some of what those assumptions are. That is a scam that I recommend every single person in this room learn how to do. Unless you're white, you've scammed enough. Chill, just to be clear. Anyway, back to my story. So obviously I had picked up this newfound skill, and I also do want to say too, I think because things were going terribly for me as a 19-year-old at the time, I think I kind of got off on the power of just getting away with something. It was like, okay, like, can't afford a Coach bag, but at least I could just take one, And I mean, like, Coach got enough money. All right. So I was arrested in 2007. It was the first and only time I've ever gotten caught. It's not because I fell off my game. It's not because I suddenly forgot how to code switch. It's because I introduced a man into the mix. Period. I don't even have to explain further, but I will. So I actually, this was a friend of mine, and I had completely I was using my preconceived notions and not factoring in like the preconceived notions that might exist with the two of us interacting together. So this was a good friend of mine, but we were definitely like cut from different cloths, if you will. I'm going to read you what I wrote about this friend. Somebody must have read the book before, so y'all know what's about to happen, okay? All right, my friend Mark was excited about our little adventure on my day off, but he was not a booster or any other kind of criminal. He went to a high school in the suburbs and came from a good two-parent home. He was skinny, attractive, super into fashion, but always single. Most of our mutual friends and I were just waiting for the day when he felt comfortable enough to come out as queer. My family loved him because he was mannerable and they knew he'd never get me pregnant. He really was a good boy. Here's the thing about good boys though. They're usually bitch niggas. As harsh as it sounds, I mean it in the most respectful way. They're not cut out for criminal activity beyond underage drinking or buying a quarter ounce from the local weed man. And this works for them because they usually stay in their lane. They go to college, they finally have sex, they drink some more, they graduate, they get a good job, they travel with their friends or girlfriends, they never improve at sex, they get married, they get promoted, they make a decent living for themselves, have some kids, and get old and content that they did life the right way. And if they're queer, things might get a little spicy, but the general trajectory is still the same. They work best above board and they aren't great under pressure, and they can't really finesse because they don't have to. They're not city boys or hot boys, and they're definitely not scamming ass rich ass niggas. And Mark was not the exception. So if y'all getting the vibe here, okay, who was with me? You know what I'm saying? If y'all are catching what I'm putting down. He was nervous. That's really the simplest way to say it. He was nervous. he was shifty and he was not making us look natural. And so also because we had been friends so long, there was a little bit of playful energy in between us. So I just think that we brought more attention to ourselves than we should have. Also, we were in Nordstrom. Yes, it's the Nordstrom that I worked at in high school. No, that was not intentional. I did not case them out using my knowledge of their systems. They were just as fair game as any other store on Magnificent Mile. Thank you very much. But you know, so we get ready to walk out. For anybody who steals, just so you know, the people who watching you on the camera, they're not gonna come up to you in the store and say, I saw you putting that in the bag. They're gonna wait for you to walk out with the stuff, because then that's when they have a case against you. So free game, okay? If you get any inkling that somebody's on to you, trust me, just put everything back and then leave with nothing, because then they can't do anything. So they catch us on the way out, take us up to the security desk, right? And this is when shit starts to get real. And this is where, so I kind of have talked about where I got into this space of this university where I felt like I really learned how to scam, right? And I feel like when I got arrested is when I suddenly saw the world and what happens to people like me when almost all of your opportunities for scamming are stripped completely away. So the first thing that happened was we, in the office, one police officer comes. I don't know if y'all know this, not to upset the Blue Lives Matter amongst y'all, but police are kind of lazy. So one officer comes and he sees that it's a male and a female. He's like, oh, who had the most merchandise? That's who I'm taking to jail, because if not, I'm gonna have to call for backup and get another officer to escort the other person to like gender segregated jail. Who is the person in this scenario to most likely have a purse or a bag that can carry most of the merchandise? It's me, right? So now God bless. Let me tell y'all how white feminism came through for me right here. Because this woman who worked at Nordstrom, I'm gonna call her Caitlin. I know that's not her name, but that's what I'm gonna call her. She was like, absolutely not. She was like, the stuff that's in her bag, a lot of it is men's clothing. She was picking up some stuff for him. He needs to be taken to jail right alongside her, and basically was like, you're gonna practice some equity today. And so he calls her back up, and then that's when we get separated. However, he still charged us the same way he intended to. So what that meant was I got charged for about, I think it was like maybe like $700 worth of stuff. It's Nordstrom, you know, it's probably only 2 things. And then Mark had like a necklace that was worth like $40 in his pocket or something like that. So essentially, what essentially happens to him is that he goes to the station, they book him, they let him right out, they write him a ticket. It's like $40 worth of merchandise. They don't care. In the state of Illinois, in case there are any other boosters in here, if you get caught with more than $350 worth of merchandise, that is considered a felony. It is not a misdemeanor. So what that meant was that I had to go before a judge and like be given a bond. That means that you don't just get to like go up into jail and get taken out. So I'm like, damn. Now my actual only concern right now is I cannot let my mom find out that I am in jail. She is already mad at me because I got a 1.6 GPA. Like, this is not gonna be good if she finds out that my ass is in jail. So I'm like, okay, I'm a finesse. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna like just wait it out and see what happens. I'm gonna go before the judge, see what the bond is, you know, see what's happening. Now, there was something interesting that happened when I was in jail. I was being catcalled. The audacity. I'm not gonna say niggas, I'm gonna say men, because I'm gonna keep it cute because we in school, but y'all know what I'm talking about. The audacity of men is just, it would be extraordinary if it were not so problematic. At this point, I've had to spend the night in jail. I have not showered, brushed my teeth, done my hair, like nothing. In like 24 hours, I'm walking through the pits of Cook County Jail at this point in time, like in a line with like 6 other women, and they are literally just, it's like I was at Cotton Club or like homecoming. Like it was like, I had never experienced anything like that. The women were a lot more helpful though. And all the women were like, okay, girl, you good. You never got in trouble before. I don't know. It's something about being in jail too. you know, when you're like a senior and you can like spot freshmen, you know what I mean? Like you can just tell, like, okay, you just got to campus, girl. Don't worry. I know that building right there says library, but the library that you're looking for is actually underground. You got to walk down those stairs to go to the UGO. I went to this school for a semester and a half before I knew where UGO was. I just want to put that out there. Y'all need to be a little bit more clear about the fact that the UG does not stand for undergrad, it stands for underground, okay? Because I didn't know where UGO was. But something similar happens in jail. When you have never been arrested before, like the people who have been in there a little bit, they can tell. And so like, and shout out to Black women, because like they were like immediately looking out for me, like, girl, like what you in here for? Like you don't seem like you're supposed to be here. What's going on with you? So I'm telling them like, you know, the details of the case. They're like, oh, you know what? You actually gonna be good. They gonna let you out of here on what's called an I bond. That don't have nothing to do with the University of Illinois. It's just because it got an I in it. They're gonna let you out of here on an I bond. It's basically like a personal recognizance bond where they let you out on like your own recognizance. Like we trust that you're a good person because you've never been here before, which is like backwards ideology, but whatever. You know, they like, you ain't gonna have to pay nothing, you good. So I'm like, okay, great. That means I don't have to tell my mama. Perfect. Do not ever try to predict what a white man is gonna do, y'all, because you don't know. Set the Who wants to guess? For people who have not read my book, for people who have read it, don't spoil it. Who wants to guess what my bond was set at? Just throw out a number. No, it's not 1,000. No, let's go higher. Let's go higher. Very close, 1738. Come on, very close. 20. My bond was set at $20,000, which means, so I guess you were kind of close, which means I only had to pay 10% of that. I had to pay $2,000. But like, did y'all hear the part of the story where I was still in body wash? Because I didn't have $2,000. Perfect. Okay. Now I want to go to another passage where I talk about kind of the process of what happens next, because at the point where I was set with the bond, that is then when I was processed into like Cook County Jail. So like, when you get arrested, they take you to a precinct, right? And then they either, you may not lie. I feel like you, yeah, I'm like, you the head you know what's up, okay. So when you get arrested, they usually take you to a precinct. I don't know how it is in Champaign because it's a smaller place, but like in a big city like Chicago, they're just gonna take you to a precinct and they're either gonna let you go or they're gonna take you to the county jail. Because I was now in a situation where I was gonna be given, where I had been given a bond and I had to come up with this money, that now meant that I needed to be processed into like Cook County Jail, which is probably hell on earth if there was a place, just based on the smell and the feeling of the fabric of those uniforms on your body alone, not even anything else considered. Okay, so here's something that you need to know about being thrown in jail. Once you're behind those bars, you're not a person, you're a number. Your background, identity, and privileges don't matter once you're locked up. And this is what I meant when I talked about like the stripping away of all the opportunities to scam. It's no one's job in there to care like who you are, what you did. Like they're not the judge, they're not your lawyer. They can't, no guard in the jail can say, oh, okay, I'll just let you go home. Like I'll just open up the door and just let you out. No one can do that, so it's not their job to care. There's no opportunity for like, it's just, you just in there. But all of those things definitely matter in the process of getting you out of jail. The process, I actually, because I want to make sure that I leave time to get back to some more scamming stories, I'm gonna save y'all the full story of what ended up happening for me to get out of jail, but I do just want to list all of the things that actually like needed to be in order for me to get out of jail. Sorry, I lost my spot. Oh, here we go. No, that's not it either. I'll just tell you because I know it, because I lived it. Basically, I had to have a place to stay. I had to have that place where I was staying needed a phone connection. That was the first option for me to get out of jail. The phone wiring was also, this was when people had house phones still. I don't know if people still have those, but it had to have phone and internet connectivity. That would be in order for them to basically put me on house arrest. When they got to my crib and started trying to put the stuff together for me to like essentially be on house arrest until my court date, the wiring wasn't working. So they had to send me back to jail so I could pay the $2,000. I had to have a family or friend system that could afford to round up $2,000 in order to get me out of jail. I had to have sound mental health in order to advocate for myself once I was in there, because essentially they're moving you from station to station and asking you a lot of different questions, and your answers to those questions dictate what area you're going to be in, whether or not you get to make certain phone calls, who you get to make your phone calls to, etc. I was very grateful that my mama is also an OG scammer, and that she basically knew people who had to fight much bigger cases than mine, who immediately got, well, not immediately, she had to get the money together first, was able to get me a lawyer. I also had to, it also really helped that I had spent 8 months at the University of Illinois getting a 1.6 GPA, because none of them knew my GPA. They just knew that I had an ID that said the University of Illinois on it. That is everything that I needed to get out of jail on a shoplifting charge. What do you think happens to people who don't have that? Who don't have a family, who don't have money, who've never been to school, whose gender identity does not match with whatever might be listed on their ID. That is an entirely different shit show, right? What do you think happens to those people? Right? And then what do you, that's a good question, that's a good answer. And they know that that's what's gonna happen with them. And so then what do they learn how to do to prevent that from happening? They become better scammers. You feel me? So let's bring this a little bit current, because essentially what I really wanted to talk to you all today, and again, this is for everybody who's not white, because y'all have scammed enough. I want to talk to you all about some of the ways that y'all really need to be better scammers. All right, one of the first scams that I pulled at the University of Illinois was an appeal scam. Some of y'all have probably already done this. Some of you all are going to do this and just don't know it yet. Very few of y'all are not. This is a scam where you have not either attendance or grades. You have not fulfilled the obligations that you need to get a certain pass or fail or a certain grade from your class. And so all of a sudden, you need a story about what prevented you from accomplishing those things, right? Everybody got a story. And actually, that's what puts you ahead in the scammer category, because now you just have a nice little file cabinet of stories that you should pull from. It don't matter if it happened 6 years ago, you say it happened this semester. And then who here knows how? Now, also another part of my scam is that I'm a good writer. Obviously, I wrote a book, I'm a writer, that's what I do. If you know that you are not a good writer, you go holler at your friends that are in the English department. You tell them to write the appeal for you so that it is smooth and compelling. And then you turn it in. Now, I know that I should not, I ain't gonna say I shouldn't be saying this. I know the university gonna be real mad. They pay me to come here and tell y'all this, how to scam them. But this is also a scam. I was literally just talking to Jacob about these fancy buildings that they just built on Green Street that were not here when I was here. I hear that the water is nasty. I hear that the walls are thin. I hear that y'all are basically overpaying to live in those buildings if you live there. Very much nice coat of paint, trash on the inside. Very much love yourself more, building on Green Street. Okay, that is the first thing, and let me tell you why that's important. Because the truth is that for people who are most marginalized, we actually are gonna have a lot of real things that happen to us when we are in school that we are gonna actually end up pushing through. There are so many more things that are gonna happen to us that we're not gonna write an appeal for, right? When I was arrested, I had to bring my ass right back to U of I. I literally drove up for my court date. I got arrested in July. My court date wasn't until September. I was well into sophomore year at this point in time. I had to drive back up there. Like, I'm going through an entire court case while like trying to salvage my GPA at this point. I could not write that down on the appeal. I could say that an uncle had an unfortunate legal situation that was sucking up all the family's resources and needed to be dealt with and didn't have childcare. And so I had to make sure that I could be there to take care of them. And then I just probably needed to take a week or two where I wouldn't be on campus. That's the story of us, is that like, we are constantly being scammed because we actually like pay a lot of money, and there are a lot of resources at this university that are meant to take care of like the most marginalized amongst us when we go through things like that, and it does not. So write your appeal. Second scam. One of my side hustles when I came back from U of I, that was when I discovered that I was like actually a good writer. And so I had a homeboy. He was in engineering. Any engineering folks here? Y'all don't come to stuff like that. What's that clap? Yes. I'm like, you know, the engineers, they don't be coming to stuff like this. I'm so glad you came. So I met a friend. I had a homeboy who was in engineering, and he was like doing one of his general ed elective courses, you know, something that required like him to write a paper. And he was like stressed, like, yeah, I gotta write this paper, like, I don't know what I'm doing, like, da, 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 da. He was like, it's 3 pages. I was like, 3 pages? That's very light work. Like, I'll tell you what, give me a couple dollars, I'll write the paper for you. Boom, I write the paper for him, he don't have to write it. He gets an A. He tells like 4 other engineering students, like, yo, my homegirl wrote me a paper. That was my side hustle literally from sophomore year through the entire other 3 years that I was at this university. It helped me put gas in my car. It helps me pay my electricity bill in my apartment. And it also like helped a lot of people get their degrees who maybe would not have if they were failing English 1 and not being able to graduate with an engineering degree because they're not good at writing papers. Figure out what you're good at and sell that shit on the side. Because this is an ecosystem of people who rely on each other. Y'all know what they have in like these big frat houses over here besides liquor and sexual assault charges in the walls? Old copies of tests. They have old copies of textbooks. They have dads and uncles and granddads who have also gone to this school, who donate a lot of money to this school, and there are therefore people built into the infrastructure to keep them here. If you are not one of those people, please figure out a way to pass your classes by any means necessary, because there is no one who's gonna come and like give a fuck when you don't, which is why, for those of y'all who also don't know, who did not read the book, I didn't actually graduate from here. So in the fall of 2009, it was essentially supposed to be the first semester of my senior year. I already knew that wasn't the case though. It was like junior year. I was like, child, I'm gonna be in college for like another 3 years. But it should have been then. All my friends like getting ready to graduate and stuff. And I'm like, I actually was like finally doing really well. It was like the first time that I was like knocking down A's and B's and like my courses. But here's the thing about your appeals. All right, there's a difference between the appeals that you write to like your academic department or like your professors and the appeals that you write to the financial aid office, because I done wrote a couple of them too. And because I had written a couple of those, they are on a limit of how many chances they are going to give you. And they do not look at, oh, okay, actually, like I see how like for the past 2 years, like you really just need to figure out what your major was gonna be and like find what you was good at, and now you're doing good. They're like, no, you have this many classes where you got this grade, and you have this many classes where you got this grade. You have this many, you have came in here to beg for money this many times, and this is how many times we've given it to you, we've given you extensions. I know you just are doing bad in this one class, but I wanna let you know that if you don't pass this class, we're not giving you no more financial aid. And so at that point, like, I don't know if y'all know how much it costs to go here, but I'm assuming y'all do because y'all go here. I ain't got it. So that's basically why I was not able to continue my degree at U of I. Like I had like another year and a half left. And I was actually like doing very well. Dr. Flynn can attest to that. Like when I got in my gender studies bag, I was a scholar. I was a scholarly girl, you know. But like when the money gets cut off, and I think that is like part of the other reason why I wanted to like kind of frame this conversation around this, is because I do think that like there's been a lot of conversations about like college not being for everyone and like college being a scam lately. And like, yeah, it is, but like people be needing to scam. Like the rules of this country and the way that we have been here is set up for a certain group of people to win and to succeed very easily, and it's set up for another group of people to not. And those people in that second category, they learn it's not just, I want us to stop with all like the grit and the hard work and the twice as good and all of that. So because it ain't, human legs can only run so fast. There's only 24 hours in the day. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much we can do. And what we actually learn how to do, the innovation, the creativity that we have as Black folks, as trans folks, as non-binary folks, as marginalized folks, is that we actually figure out creative and ingenious ways to get from our point A's to our point B's to our point C's and wherever else we want to go. And that's literally like what my whole book is about. It's about how the things that people say are ghetto, are illegal, are unproductive, are unnecessary, are ratchet, that are setting us back, are actually expressions of like Black girl creativity. They're expressions of our innovation. They're expressions of our resilience. They're expressions of our love for one another, the things that we're willing to do in order to help other folks get to those places. And the truth is that like, if we just looking at what it is all a scam, but it's also like just what we have to do. And so I want to make sure I leave time for questions. I'm just here to encourage y'all to scam a little bit more. Unless you're white, you've scammed enough. Thank you. How are we doing questions?
Yeah, so I think I'm moderating this, but y'all don't want to hear from me. So does anybody have a question that they want to ask? And what I will do is run around with the mic, because I wore flat shoes specifically for this, so that people can hear. Hi, my question is,
Yes.
Is there ever a time where you regret being so truthful and blunt and honest?
No. Can't say that I.
I'm not sure if I missed this or not, but what really inspired you to write this book and put all of this information together? Because I read it from front to back, to the middle, to the back of you, and all around, and it's a wonderful piece.
So I'm a person who has lived many different lives. You probably can tell from like the bio that was read. So like I just talked to you all about like high school and college as like a gender studies major, but for folks who like don't know anything about my background, I'm currently an entertainment journalist, I guess it's technically my title. I am a writer and I work in entertainment. And I think one of the biggest inspirations actually for writing this book was that when I got into the media world, one, it was like very white. It was very like, I worked at Refinery 29. I mean, y'all know the vibes at Refinery 29, right? And so there were not a lot of Black girls, and then the Black girls that I was meeting were like, they were Black girls who had definitely had to do a lot of work to like untangle their Blackness from whiteness. They were like very used to being like, they, you know, from kindergarten to college, they were like the only Black girl, or you know, some of them had went to HBCUs. That's where they got their like Black experience or whatever, but no tea, no shade. But, you know, I noticed that like what was actually expected of me as a Black girl in that space was to actually like not talk at all about the scamming that I had to do to get there, to like not talk at all about like, you know, I was noticing that like I was like one of a handful of girls in the industry who like even had like other Black homegirls who didn't have wealthy parents, who had a partner that was also Black, you know what I mean? Like just was real Black, like, you know, and not, and so part of the reason why I wanted to write this book is because it was actually like a lot of dissonance that I was feeling, because on the one hand, it's like very white over here, and then the Black girls that y'all do have that y'all are putting up on the pedestal are also like very enmeshed in whiteness. But then on the other side, y'all are like obsessed with Cardi B and like Megan Thee Stallion, and like, so there was like this whole space of Black girls like me that I felt like was being jumped over to like engage in and like enjoy this very like commodified version of like Black girlhood, of like, and specifically of like hood Black girl shit, like trap Black girl shit. And that's why I had to write this book, because I just felt like there was a lot that was being missed in like these conversations. Like, we cannot keep having like sensationalized op-eds about like the Ivy League student who's a cam girl at night. Like, they literally recycle that same story. Like, it's like every 3 years it happens, but like the legislation for sex workers is like terrible, you know, and like not getting better, you know, or I mean, we could take literally any issue, like, and we can see a disconnect between like who is telling the story, what the story is that gets told, and how it basically it's all just noise that happens on top of the heads and does not involve the people who are most impacted. And so that's why I had to write this book. Yeah. Look, I'm 6 feet away from all y'all. I'm good.
So navigating like just the struggles of dealing with college, like you said, you went through things at home, financial aid classes, teaching how to and stuff. How do you feel like you handle like the consequences of certain things, or like the failures that you may have felt like when you were arrested or after decided to change your and stuff like that? I know we put a lot of ourselves.
So I think that's what's so crazy. Like, I mean, like, I definitely felt like a failure, and like I had let my family down, but I didn't see myself as like, I didn't suddenly have a different perception of myself. Like, I still thought I was smart. I still thought I was, you know, like all the things that I was before. It was just like, damn, I just got caught up. Because like, I think that's the other thing is like, when you can, when you know, and I think people of color, like, we exist like this all the time. We exist with like a very like strong awareness that like shit is stacked up against us at any time. Like, we can bust a corner wrong in a car and like everything can just go left. And so like, I think that's what's important to remember, is that like, this shit, you're not crazy. This shit is stacked up against you. Like, it's not, you know, I think a lot of people have been talking about this now in the pandemic. Like, you know, people are going through like a lot of grief, a lot of difficulties at work, you know, body image issues, like, you know, and our brains think that like, oh, what just happened to me is like a result of like me, and like, but it's like, oh, yeah, but like not really. Like, the world is happening around you, and like, how do you fit into that? And so I think that's always what helped me, and also having homegirls. You got to have some homegirls. You gotta have some homegirls, y'all. I can't, unless you are a man, leave us alone. But like, you have to have some homegirls. Like, I would not be here today if it was not for like my friends who like went through. Oh, because let me tell y'all about Mark. When I got out of jail, Mark wasn't answering the phone. And me and my mama had to pull up to Mark's house to have a conversation with him and his parents about what, because that was, he was a good boy. And so he hadn't told his parents that he had a little adventure in the jail. And so we had to go pull up. So you need some homegirls, because one of my homegirls wouldn't have left me in jail, okay?
I have 2 questions. What do you tell professors who know that students you know,
You said, what do you tell?
so what do you say to professors?
Uh-huh.
Myself, I get all of these weird emails.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if people are scamming me.
Right.
But I know, because, you know.
I mean, yeah. So when I was in grad school, I was an instructor. I taught intro to gender studies at Georgia State when I was there. And like, yeah, you know, like, you get the emails, like, because the truth is that like, it's a lot easier to say something that sounds completely kind of unrealistic than it is to say like, I'm actually experiencing depression right now. I'm not medicated. I had an episode last night. I fucked my entire apartment up. My landlord's coming today. I'm trying to clean it up. Because those are really, like, I'm gonna be honest, like those are the reasons why we miss class sometimes. Or even like, I was sexually assaulted last night. I don't even know that yet. I'm not even registering that yet, but like my body is not up for coming to class. Those are not the emails that we can send. And so like, let them bullshit you, see what happens. Like that's always how I mean, like, it's in terms of coursework, it's not over till it's over. It's not over until the end of the semester. And so like, okay, like, right, baby, because let me tell you how I didn't win and got some retroactive withdrawals. Do everybody know what a retroactive withdrawal is? That's where a month after you didn't finish the class and got that D, you decide, actually, now my GPA can't take that D right now. Let me go ahead and just pretend like I never took that class. Okay, listen, it's not over. It's not over until you say it's over. And so, like, honestly, I feel like, honestly, as instructors, I do feel like, first of all, question what it is about you that's like making you feel like you need to go investigate what this student is telling you. Like, if you assuming that a student is lying, like, is the student Black, girl? Like, is the student, you know what I mean? Like, is it like, I would question your implicit biases and just like wait and see what happens, or actually ask, hey, I want you to come to my office hours and talk to me. Like, because that's the other thing too. Like sometimes, like then you'll just get the real story. And then also I want to say, like, a lot of us are in school and we actually don't know all the resources that are available to us, period. Like I was very slow learning about all of the resources that were available to me in abundance. And had I been a little bit more honest about some of the things that were going on, I still don't regret it. But had I been a little bit honest, I would have found out faster. And I think that is really the value that you have as instructors, is not just to impart the knowledge that you're teaching for that course, but to also like be a resource for students in terms of everything that is available and going on. That's our question back. Hey, hey.
So sometimes it feels like everything around us is pushing us to give up on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering,
Like the lady in the MCB place who told me, not you might have a different style of learning. She told me, maybe you should try to be a nurse instead of a doctor. Those are two different things. But, I felt you when you said that, so I had to put that story in. Go ahead.
so like how did you not do that? How did you push through that? Not give up on yourself?
Okay, let's come back to the bad bitchery of it all. Because like, I do regard myself in that way, okay? And so, like, as a bad bitch, I could not be a bum. And so I knew that I was gonna have to figure something out, even if it was not academia. To be honest, I can honestly say that the only reason I actually continued in like to say like, okay, I want this bachelor's degree, I'm gonna finish this bachelor's, is because, well, for two reasons. One, I was like, okay, the jobs that are gonna pay me well enough to like move about my mom's crib, because when I left here, I moved back home with my mom in Chicago and I transferred to DePaul. So I was like, okay, me and her not getting along, I gotta get up out of here. One, the only job is gonna like pay me enough to get up out of here. It's gonna require me to have a degree. But also I had actually found something that I was very passionate about, and like I had a very clear path forward towards like doing that. I ended up hating it and like pivoting into writing, but like I always had a plan, and I just really didn't want to be a bum. I'm gonna be honest. There is something to be said about like the legacy of Black women, because they call it vanity now, right? They say that like Black women are like vain or like superficial because we care about being bad bitches. But like, I actually think that is another example of like our ambition at play and kind of our ability to like imagine different worlds and different lives for ourselves that exist outside of like misogynoirist principles about who we should be as Black women. So I think that's what kept me pushing. It was being a bad bitch. Yeah. I have to say. Bye.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's kind of small. Thank you so much for sharing. As a staff, semi-instructor, one of the things, how do we help our students best find their want to be that bitch, or to make them feel like these are the resources that will enable that? You had spoken about not knowing where the undergraduate library was for some time.
It was a long time, yeah.
About what the resources are on campus, and I'm just wondering if there was just one thing that I could have said to you as my advisee.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like, because what you all also have as staff and faculty that I also want to say that is an asset is that y'all have literally just lived longer. So like you recognize how, no disrespect to anyone in here, but I'm even speaking on myself at that time, you just recognize like how unaware an 18 or 19-year-old is of the world, of themselves, period. And so like, sometimes like it just takes like you being able to make a connection that they cannot see yet. So the person that I'm forever grateful for that I met here is actually Dr. Ruth Nicole Brown. She started Soul High. It's a program here that some people probably know about. Yeah. So I was a Soul High homegirl, and literally it was my homegirl. My homegirl was like, we should take Dr. Brown's class. It was actually Blair teaches the class now. So you all can take that class with Professor Blair. It was Black Girlhood Study. It was a Black Girlhood Studies course. It was, what's the exact course about, Blair? Oh, it is Black Girlhood Studies. It was basically Black Girlhood Studies. It was a graduate course. We were only sophomores, but we were like, we just gonna take it anyway. Like this is the kind of stuff we into. Let's just do it. Like it's a Black woman teaching it. Like, okay, let's just do it. It'll be fun. And from there, she was like telling us about this work that she was doing with Soul High, where she was like working with Black girls, like just out in Champaign. And like, she was the one, she knew I was into thought shit, and that I was always like, you know, the whole shit ain't on you, it's in you. The whole shit was always in me. She knew I was very interested in like sexuality studies. So she like linked me with an organization that actually like did reproductive justice organizing. And like, I just brought all that back to campus, and like suddenly like, and it was literally just like, it wasn't like we had a sit down where she was like, let me tell you how to get your life together. It was just like, oh, I think you like this. And I did, because like she could see that before I could, in a way that I could. And like, and sometimes it won't be like that. Sometimes you won't know them well enough to know that, but like, just pay attention, like just pay attention. And it could just be like the one thing. And it also could be that you don't know. I think also like accepting that you don't know could also be an answer. And like, also everybody is not looking for the same, I don't know. I think one of what's that phrase about youth? Like, the worst thing about it is that like you don't recognize, like you just don't know what you don't know until later, and it's like in retrospect. And so some of it is a combination of just right time, right place, but also just plugging people into the resources. And sometimes it's not go talk to the therapy people. Sometimes it's like, go join hypnotic dance team, because like I think that does hypnotic still, do they still got the dance team? About that, yeah, like sometimes it's that. So you're welcome. Wow, that makes me so happy to hear that the dance teams are still here. Ronnie used to be on the dance team. Hey.
My question to you, my friend, please. I'm going into law. I'm specifically going into criminal justice law to help Black and brown folks out the Southside of Chicago.
Come talk to me after. My homegirl Danielle, who graduated from here, is a lawyer in New York now. Yeah, she's from Chicago too. Yeah.
Okay. So my question for you is, for a Black woman that's been through the criminal justice system in the city, what is like one piece of advice or one thing you want me to know for when I'm working with my clients?
Don't be afraid of your clients, and don't be afraid, like know what's going on with your clients. I wrote about my lawyer in my book. Basically, like my mom knew this girl her husband was like basically like a kingpin. So this was his lawyer who always like ate up all his charges, right? And so I get it that like my little case that he was only maybe making $5,000 for was nothing compared to another case where he was gonna be able to like bill 6 figures worth of hours, right? But the thing that kept happening was that like he would pull up to my house in his Benz. He like wouldn't get out of the car because he didn't want to get out of the car in that neighborhood. I would hand him the check that, you know, because we were like, it was only $5,000, we still have to pay it in installments. And I would like hand him the check through the window. And every single time he came to my house, he would be like, and what school do you go to? And you haven't been arrested before, right? Okay, good, we good. All right, yeah, I'm just, so like, it was basically like very clear to me that like, he didn't really, he knew how the system worked. So he already knew it wasn't that big of a deal because I had never, the fact that I had a lawyer and the fact that I had never had a case before, like he knew that like it would just work out. So he didn't have to do any work. But I also feel like on the flip side of that, like he got me as a client because like another one of his clients was able to refer him. And so like, I think that can feel like a very weird, like obviously people are always gonna be in trouble as long as we have a criminal justice system that's intent on putting people in it. But I also don't think you should be afraid of seeing your clients as like a community that's worth you networking with, that's worth you talking to, because then what it could end up being is that you end up being more than a lawyer, but like you could be the reason why one of your clients then also goes on to become a lawyer, right? If you are not afraid to like consider them also part of your community, because they are. Yeah. Do we really need the microphone? I can hear y'all. You don't have to keep running around. Oh, okay. Mhm. Uh-huh. Okay. My undergraduate self, I would say, now, I mean, I would say, girl, go to therapy just now, just go now. And then I would say, I would know where the financial aid office is. I would know where the undergraduate library is. I would have just like done, so fun fact, I went to Kenwood, and for folks who don't know, Kenwood also has like a 7th and 8th grade academic center. I was also at the academic center. And so I actually came to U of I with a gang of like, there were like 4 or 5 of us who had all went to Kenwood pretty much from 7th grade through high school and was like all here. And I like, while that's like a very lovely story and we all still friends and like we are lifelong friends, I do think that one of the setbacks of that is that I was very comfortable, and I was like I didn't push myself to like be anything different because I came down here with like the gang, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that I would just like push myself to actually like take a little bit more ownership of like the fact that I go here, you know what I mean? Like I never was a person who had like college school spirit. Like you'll never catch me hitting never. Like I just was never that girl. I was never that girl. And I don't know, I won't say I regret that, but like I feel like I did not take ownership of the fact that like actually like this entire ecosystem that's down here is actually meant to work for me, because it's me that's taking on these student loans in order to pay to go here, right? And so like I wish that I would have done that, I think, too. Yeah. In 5 years, I see myself I see myself on HBO. Okay. Yeah. I see myself, you know, I mean, to be honest, like in 5 years, I see myself doing like a lot more of this, just like in bigger rooms and for bigger checks. And like, you know, I definitely am going to be writing more. I can't announce stuff yet, but y'all will see my name on more books, and hopefully on a show or two. And I don't know, maybe also like I would have fucked a rapper by then. That's always been a goal of mine. just, you know, if I'm gonna be there, you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm gonna be in the area, you know, I don't think my girlfriend will mind. So yeah, maybe it'll be Young and May. I'm sorry. Next question.
So that I can ditch the microphone if you repeat back people's questions, because
Oh, okay.
is a good.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, got it. I saw a question right here. Okay, okay. That's a question right there.
Ability is very important.
That is here. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Please give me grace. Right there.
So hi.
Hey.
I have a question. So the first question is, how do you dream big?
You said, do I drink?
How do you dream big?
Oh, how do I dream big? Girl, I thought you said, do I drink? I was gonna say, girl, yes. Oh, I got to. How do I dream big? You know, honestly, that's also where my homegirls come in, because my homegirls just see me in ways that other people do not, and they see my potential in ways that other people do not, and they see it first and they see it deeper. And so I really actually like encourage you to like just have like, I won't even call them mirrors, because it's like in a way they're mirrors because they're reflecting you back to you, but it's like it's deeper than that. It's like there are like portals around you where it's like, here's the path that you could take. Like you could go here, you could go here, you could go here. And so I think that's what helps me to dream big. And also literally like that, you cannot be it if you cannot see it, is so real. Like, and I think people use that in like very like big ways, like, oh, like, you know, you can't be, you know, I tell people all the time, like I had never known any writers, so I didn't think that I could be a writer. And that's true, but it's also like, I didn't know that I could get paid $10,000 for something that maybe I would have thought I would only ask for $3, you know, or, you know, I never knew that I could get an emergency loan from the University of Illinois Financial Aid Office for absolutely no reason. You ain't even got to write an appeal. You just tell them you a little low on cash and they'll give you, it was $600 when I was here. I don't know if they still have that. How much is it? Oh, it's 1,000 now, period. You know what I mean? So like, I didn't know that, you know, either. And like, sometimes that's dreaming big too. Like sometimes dreaming big is just like, how do you get out of the jam? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So there's a good question is, how do you get, like, you said that you didn't know any graders, and how did you find those? Whether it be in school or like, I don't know.
I didn't.
Was like,
So I am of the Facebook era. Oh, sorry. So the question was like, if I didn't know writers, how did I meet them? So I'm of the Facebook era. And what happened was I was that girl who used to like write like well, I guess y'all just call them real long statuses now. But back in the day, Facebook statuses could only be like a certain amount of characters, more like a tweet. And then they had a separate feature called notes, where you could like write notes. Do you remember those? Okay. I used to write those. And people used to like them. Like people, not even people used to like them or dislike them, but people would engage with them. Like people would always like comment back. So then I was like, oh, should I start a blog? I'm gonna start a blog. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna do that. And so like that, because that was the writing that I did know. I did know people who started blogs. Okay, I can start a blog. And then what ended up happening was someone reached out to me who was reading my blog, who was like, there's this publication called Feministing. They are looking for, Feministing is like an OG like feminist blog. It had like millions, in like its heyday, it had like millions of readers. And they were like, yeah, they're looking for new columnists and they doing a competition. They want people to submit entries. And I be reading, your writing is good, you should do it. And I just so happened to have known one of the editors at Feministing from like the reproductive justice work I was doing. And I was like, okay, like I'll do it. And I won. And then, but that wasn't like my career as a writer. I wrote for Feministing for free for like 4 years. I like went to DC, I was working, I was still just like, oh, I write on the side. Like my blog, my writing, my blogging, all of that happens on the side. Like I am not a writer. And then because I kept writing for them, that's how I started to meet other writers online. Like they would like my work, I would like their work. And then like, you know, I started to essentially like be enmeshed in that. But like, honestly, I kind of scammed my way into journalism too, because I've never taken a journalism class. Like I got to some of these jobs and they start talking in this very like heavy journalistic terminology. And I was like, I don't know what y'all talking. I'm like Googling everything on the side. Like, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean? because that just wasn't my background, but it was also kind of time and place because I came up in journalism during that era of like personal narrative. And the good thing is that like writing is one of those skills where like, if you know how to write, you know how to write, period. So you can do all different types of writing. So like now the type of writing that I do now, like wrote a memoir, right? But like I also write some of the memes and some of the tweets for one of the Netflix accounts. I also have a client now, like they literally like help brands. Like I do like literal copywriting, which for any aspiring writers, the money is in copywriting, period. So y'all want to talk to me about that? Talk to me about that after, which is literally like writing the words that might be on a billboard or writing the words that might be in a commercial or something like that. And so, yeah, it is like a slow process, but I think when you take that baby step, you still have a different vantage point, and then you'd be surprised at who you see from that angle.
While I'm walking this way, I want to put in a shameless plug if folks haven't read the book. to consider
Period. Buy the book.
Listening to the audiobook, which Sesali narrates, because that's what I did, and it makes me feel like we're friends, and we just wanted. Thank you so much for this feature and everything.
You're welcome.
I have multiple Instagram captions for this. My name is Reese Johnson. I'm the assistant director over at InStyle.
Which was called the Black House when I was here, y'all.
So as a professional, I definitely jump into the lane of like professionalism.
Yeah.
And now that through my professional career, I've learned about like how professionalism is truly rooted in consequences.
Yeah.
As a professional, I've also started to do the work to kind of deconstruct that and lean more into like my authentic Blackness. And even if that looks like ghetto or ratchet to some people, allow myself to be the Black person that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question or advice to you is like, how does one like start to move into the true authentic Black woman that they are within these professional spaces? And and secondly, how do I then encourage my Black students to allow themselves to be authentically Black in professional spaces?
This is a tricky question because I definitely believe in like finessery, obviously. And so I do think that like, I'm not gonna be the person that sits up here and says that like playing into respectability politics is not sometimes a tool that you can pull out your backpack that actually can be used in your advantage. Would never say that. I'm not gonna say that. However, although I do think that there is a certain, so like you literally work at the Black House. There should be no conversation about no part of your Blackness that is being brought with you to work. And if anybody questions that, then the question goes back on them about like what their assumptions are. Because like students do not exist on this campus. Black students do not exist on this campus just as students. They also have to live on this campus. They also have to socialize on this campus. They also have to engage with like the police on this campus and in Champaign and in Urbana and sometimes Savoy. Like they also have to like, we're still Black. Like we still are Black people. And like part of why the Black House exists is to like support Black students and be in Black 360, period. Because like we are not like fraction like that. And so like, it's disheartening to hear that come from like a professional who work in the Black House, like, because I know why you are made to feel like that, because you look at your job within the context of like student services. I work in student affairs at a university level, right? And so like, that's where the element of professionalism is coming, but it's also like, for who? Because I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like Ross has been a leader on this campus and working in student affairs in a lot of different capacities. I've seen Ross in sneakers. I've seen Ross in dressed down, dressed up. One time Ross literally came, we had a meeting scheduled and Ross said, look, I got a baby. we have to wrap this up early, like, period. Like, said it just like that, like, is when Anthony was first born. And so I don't feel like people ever expect for Ross to be like more professional though. No one is ever going to ask that. No one is ever going to say that Ross is not professional. No one is ever, you understand where I'm getting at with this? Like, I just think that is so, that's only specific to Black women, and only Black women have to ask that. Like, no one else has to say, like, how do I show up my full white self and still be professional? Like, they just don't say that, and they don't have to. And like, I think it's okay to like broach that as a topic of conversation. Like, did I have to be? Yeah, like yesterday I took my braids down. Today my hair look different. Leave me alone. Like, you know. But I know how it is over here, girls. I get it. That's why I was like, ooh, tough question. That's why I don't work in the academy, to be honest.
So I really appreciate that.
I love thought scholars.
And your book talk a lot about the limitations of sexual autonomy for Black women.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on what reimagining sexual liberation for everyone, but music for communities that they can have that autonomy.
Yes. So that's why I love female rappers. I love female rappers because I feel like female rappers are like the first, like the most accessible example of like what sexual autonomy and liberation and freedom can look like. And when I just mean like they're right there, they're in pop culture, they're everywhere. So I feel like that's like a very accessible way to like grasp onto that. Because when you actually look at like how Black women are socialized around sex in the real world, like it's always about like risk or aversion or about like martyrdom or about like auditioning or interviewing or being worthy of like a partner. It's never about like what we want. And it's also never within the context of our larger like lifestyles, right? So like, I love to hear like a female rapper say like, I am a bad bitch, and because I am a bad bitch, that means that I do not date broke niggas, period, right? Like, and so like, because when we really like think about and break that down to like what it really means, it's about like, I have a certain lifestyle, or I have certain goals, or I have certain standards, and there is a certain amount of labor that I'm not willing to do that if it's gonna sacrifice that or slow that down, or there's a certain amount of energy I'm not gonna allow my space, or whatever the case may be. But I think that for me, like a lot of, when I was growing up, a lot of the conversations around Black girls and sexuality was around risk aversion. It was around like, don't get pregnant, don't get STDs. It was around like Black women who are sexual are somehow like letting the Black community down. They're the reason why the Black community is gonna be the way, you know, like just very like, it was giving Moynihan report all the time. Like, and so, for me, I think in addition to like female rappers, I would say like on a more like academic scale, first of all, like the work I think that we did with Soul Hot, like literally every time we would go on Soul Hot, we would like, these middle school girls would just like, the ways that we think Black girls are thinking about sexuality is just not always how they're thinking about it. And they would always like push us to like, all right, you welcome. Oh.
Everybody here, avocat, lawyer, judge, everything like this. That between YMCA, JB, it short form. You can see somewhere here with mom, holding mom's face, me myself, all of those, but the rest is that also. This is mom's face. Exactly.
Oh, thank you so much for that contribution.
Absolutely.
Can I finish what I was saying?
Oh, no, I'm running for my walk.
Okay, well, I'll see you later. Have a good walk, boo-boo. I love you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. So what I was saying is basically like, not only did we have, so female rappers, and obviously like the girls in Soul Hot would always like force us to like consider these different entry points for like what we felt like Black girls needed. And I also think ultimately what it came down to is just like letting Black girls figure out what they need for themselves. Like in every other arena of life, like you have to kind of go through it in order to like make something of it, to make a decision around it. And I just don't feel like Black girls are like nowhere. I mean, like, it's actually, like, if you think about it, very heartbreaking and horrific that, like, if a Black girl has a crush on somebody, like, she's more worried about, like, getting in trouble for, like, just having that thought than, like, being able to say. And, like, I just remember, like, you know, like, Hannah Montana and them, like, all the little white girls on TV got to have, like, that support as they was, like, figuring it out and figuring out their sexuality, figuring it all out. And I just never felt like Black girls did. Even in a way that, like, Black boys did, like, you know what I mean? Like, people was, like, really encouraging them to, like, get out in the field, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, yeah, like, you was considered fast, you know, or just expected not to talk about it, expected not to bring it up. And so, and then I would say, so in addition to So Hot, LaMonda Stallings' work around, like, Black ratchet imagination really has been, like, an inspiration for me. Because I think it, like, just provides, like, a theoretical framework and foundation for how, in her case, she was writing about the strip club, about how spaces or practices that are seen as, like, reductive, especially around sexuality, are actually, like, these sites of imagination and, like, new possibilities and, like, queer possibilities. So.
We're gonna do one more question because I know that lots of you want to do. Because I know a lot of you want to, like, run up.
Yeah, I'll stick around also after. I know, like, folks gotta clear these rooms out. Thank you for having me.
I know you were discussing the primary plan for right now, and I was wondering, we talk a lot about, like, our negative emotions when we're together as a group, when we're together individually, maybe not so much like bringing it up there. I have trouble bringing things up in therapy or to professors and to my advisor who, like, lives down the street. So I was wondering, with your memoir, you write about all these, like, scary situations, like really real things that happen to you. And I'm wondering, because that scary shit is believed a lot, like you speak it out loud to, like, an adult or a professor. When we were, like, talking about the excuses and like, you know, I couldn't come to class today because my cat ate my homework. Well, like, if I told you the truth, I probably wouldn't be believed. Right. Like last semester, for example, like I had a couple people in my life literally died. Yeah. And if you bring that up to a professor, they might even point you to the director of therapy or, like, someone who really might be like, you need to see someone, and I'm gonna bring this up to someone else. Because it's like, if you don't handle it how I think you should handle it, then I can't give you the grace. But, like, they don't have to handle it how you would handle it. Like, they just are letting you know why they couldn't show up for class or for this assignment. Yeah. And, well, I guess to kind of get to that, like, question part, do you think that in writing this memoir, could you see yourself directing the story of your life? And like on screen? Yeah. Yeah, I could. I don't. Okay, but let me tell y'all just right now, I don't like LA. They're weird out there. No disrespect for yeah. LA is weird. I don't want to move to LA. But I've had meetings with, like, production companies about my book. It's a long process though. Like, I don't also to think about, like, entertainment, that, like, that television and film specifically is, like, I don't know, like, nothing becomes real to me until there's, like, a contract or, like, a check in front of me. And, like, TV and film is very, like, you're having meetings for 2 years before. It's like pre-pledging. Like, I don't know if it's Greeks here. What's the Greek life here now? Yeah. Do they got the sororities back? Okay, yeah, it's like how Greek life was when I was at U of I. So when I was at U of I, the AKAs were suspended, but everybody went to the AKA, right? And but here's the gag. They wasn't coming back. They didn't come back until, like, 2014. And, like, the AKAs that was here knew that they probably wasn't gonna come back until the end, but was still letting the girls that wanted to be AKAs kind of, like, prance behind them. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's like, that's how Hollywood is. It's very, like, oh yes, like, keep talking to me about your idea. I love it. I love it. I love it. And then let me use it and not pay you. Yeah. And so, like, I don't know if I have, and the reason I'm being very transparent about this is just because, like,
if nothing ever happens of this book, like outside of it being a book, I want y'all to know that could have also been that. Not necessarily that, you know what I mean? I just don't know if I'm like built for that industry. As a person who has changed industries a couple of times and like worked in different industries and like known the ups and downs, it's like, there are some things that are not what they seem and also don't pay as much as you think they pay either. And so like, I just don't know if it'll be worth it, but the answer is yes. Like, I feel like honestly, like if I got like a dope group of filmmakers who was like, let's just like take a chapter out of this book and like make something from it, like that would happen on YouTube before it was like on HBO. Yeah.
Shameless plug time.
Yes,
Cecily's book, Bad Fat Black Girl, which is very hard to say many times fast,
it is.
is available for purchase today, just down the street at YMCA bookstore.
They got a whole kiosk set up.
Yeah, they're great display. See it on the Diversity and Social Justice Ed Instagram. So that's one thing. And then finally, I want to thank our sponsors who made this possible. So thank myself, Women's Resources Center, Diversity and Social Justice Education, Bruce Nesbitt African American Cultural Center.
Black House.
Office of the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Center of Women's Studies.
I also wanted to say I'm gonna go to the bookstore and sign copies of my book. And so when you buy one, you'll get a signed copy. I don't know how many copies they have. I'm gonna literally just pop in there and ask them if I can sign it. I don't know if hopefully they believe I wrote it. But I also stick around here before I head there, but I will stick around here in case folks have other questions. I'm really glad y'all came. It really is an honor to be back. And I'm not paying that $1,700 I owe, period. Yeah, you got to. You have to. It's the only way.